Inside of this box is a mini PC that I'm hoping I can run my entire studio, Mandic Labs 1.0, off of. That means using it to run 3D printers, 3D design components, to live stream with, and even going as far as editing this video you're watching right now on the Geekcom GT1 Mega. So let's see if this little box can actually do all of that. The goal for this video is to build a mobile, compact, live streaming and workstation setup for my studio and a little bit around this bench as well. I need to take lessons I learned in the last space and apply them to this one, which is a little bit smaller than my last studio, so I need to be more efficient about things. In my last studio space, this custom-built water-cooled computer powered everything. Live streaming, my CAD workflow, all of it. And that thing has a 16-core processor. It's power hungry. It's got a graphics card, an RTX 3090 Ti, that costs more than this entire mini PC, and it's bigger than this too. So we have to ask, can a mini PC really power my entire studio? We're gonna find out. Full disclosure, Geekcom is sponsoring this video and they did provide this for my studio space. So this is not a product review. I am going to be showing you any pain points I may run into and my real world use cases for this thing, and if it really will do what I need it to do. There are links in the description down below. Those are affiliate links, and there's a discount code for members of my audience down there as well if you want to pick one of these up for yourself. Believe it or not, my YouTube studio draws a fair bit of power, so the Intel i9 185H 65 watt processor in this is going to be a lot more energy efficient than my typical work setup. Is it going to do the work I need? We're going to find out, but I know it has the connectivity that I want. Two 2.5 gig Ethernets, two USB-A, two HDMIs, and two USB 4.0 ports on the back of this unit. I can use one of those ports to connect to my one stand YouTube setup with the Razer Thunderbolt 4 dock and a 1440p monitor on it. But that's for the testing I want to do to verify this thing's performance. Let's get to that later in the video. For now, let's just get to building the stand that we're going to be using here in the studio. The base for my new setup is a rolling TV stand. I can use this to move around the studio and work in different areas and not be limited to just one spot, which is something I really want to do moving forward. Film in more than just one location of the space. It's also going to let me live my high school AV cart dreams. For a monitor, this stand allows me to use a basic 4K 43-inch TV that is going to work out fine for my day-to-day workflow. A fun little side story for you, this isn't actually the TV I intended to use for this application. Back in Philadelphia, I purchased a Hisense TV with local array dimming, 55 inches, a variable refresh rate. That was the one I was going to use for studio projects. When we first moved into the new house in Portland, we actually got rid of our old living room TV, so we set up the Hisense temporarily. One day, while watching TV, our silly boy Jekyll jumped up onto the fireplace mantle. I'd never seen him do this before, so I snapped this photo of the instance. It was funny to me at that moment. And then not even 30 seconds later, he tried to jump down by jumping to the TV, knocked it over, it landed on the screen, and broke. So that went to e-waste, and now I'm using a 43-inch Amazon Fire TV that's fine. And then I set the GT1 Mega on the shelf on the TV stand, and I've lived with it like this for about a month now. I'm actually really glad that I did because it's shown me a few points where I could improve on things, I think. Such as the Logitech keyboard and mouse that I've been using, they don't work very well on Bluetooth. They just constantly have dropouts, and then Bluetooth in Windows is just not amazing. Then there's my Deity S-Mic 2 shotgun microphone. This connected to my Zoom F3 audio recorder, so I could use that as an interface to the computer, and that's how I did my first handful of streams to get audio for them. But one stream I had to go mobile, I had to move away from the Workbench. So I threw on my Hollyland Mark II lavalier microphone, and folks liked the sound of it better. During a stream where I'm not really processing the audio a lot, that kind of makes sense. So I can ditch the shotgun microphone and the recorder and just go with the lavalier, which simplifies my entire setup here. Then there's cables. For this entire live stream setup, for my second camera angle, for my camera switcher, the connections to the computer, I just have so many cables draped around here, which is not helping with the whole concept of being mobile and moving things around in the studio. This needs to be addressed, so that's another point that I need to clean up. These are things that I learned from living with this setup, and there's a lot to be said for maybe testing out what your idea is before you fully implement it, because I would have gone a different direction most likely. With that new knowledge of what I need from my setup, I can move forward with the design process and get a couple of things mounted up here. I want to start from the ground and work my way up with this setup. I already have this UPS just sitting on the TV stand right now. This provides a bit of weight to the bottom of this to balance out the setup. It also provides a battery backup. My entire network in my house is also battery backed up, so in the event of a power outage, I can at least wrap up a stream before it just goes out on me. And I also just use this as a place to plug in things instead of having a power strip mounted to this. In my previous video on my one stand YouTube setup, I made a couple of mounts that sit onto the legs of that whole configuration to put a shelf on and the UPS on. I just modified those a little bit to fit the legs of the TV stand, and here we are. After the UPS is mounted, it's onto the GT1 Mega itself. It's currently sitting on a shelf on the TV stand, and that's fine, but this is still a workshop, so I'd rather protect it a little bit. It came with this VESA mount in the box. I'm going to use this to jump into Fusion and design up a mounting bracket that'll mount it to the TV stand underneath that shelf. I'm also going to put a little bit of cable management into place on this so important cables aren't going to come unplugged when I don't want them to. A fair bit of time later, I've got an over-engineered mount and clamps to attach it to the stand. I'm going to send it over to the Prusa XL as I'm going to use the build volume of this machine, but also the ability to print multi-material. I'm going to line the inside of the clamps with a flexible material, namely TPU from Fibrology, to help with the grip onto the TV stand. And of course, while this print is running, it just got a whole lot darker in my studio because that studio light right there just turned off. That is so not helpful. And now it's flashing. Things are never dull around here. So I took the light apart to see what's going on inside of here. Dust is definitely going on. Both fans were working when I benchtop power supplied them, but only one of them was working in the light. By the way, look at this freaking heatsink and the heat pipes. The end of it is the cob LED. That's it. The rest of it is cooling. Long story short, I think the thermistor is bad inside of here, so I just unplugged it and forced it to think that it's hot all the time. So the fans are gonna run 24/7, but I don't really care. They're not that loud. As long as the light works, this is a $600 light that's out of warranty, so if I can keep it working, I'm going to. Okay, back to the actual project. With that actually rather important side quest out of the way, my prints are done after about 13 hours of printing. Between the height, the tool changes for the multi-material, that's just how long it took. So we're ready to mount the GT1. But before we do that, let's take it apart and take a look inside, because let's face it, if you're watching this video to this point, you probably want to see what's inside of this little box. I know I want to look inside of here. Gaining access to the internals is really straightforward. Underneath the 4 rubber feet are 4 Phillips head screws. We can then remove the plastic base that gets us to the RF shielding cover with the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antennas attached to it. 4 more Phillips screws gets us to the parts we'd probably upgrade over time. My unit came with a Gen 4 Crucial 2TB SSD in it, as well as 32 GB of DDR5 5600 RAM. I was happy to see there's also a 2242 SSD slot that's open so I can upgrade this without replacing the existing drive. Underneath the SSD we can find this Intel chipset Wi-Fi 7 card, which is also our Bluetooth card. 4 more Phillips screws gets us the entire main board out of the CNC machined aluminum chassis, so we can take a look at the what they call Ice Blast 2.0 cooler. Remember, the chip on this is a laptop chip, the Intel i9 185H. All of this in the palm of my hand is an entire computer. That cooler is pretty beefy for that fact. It's got 2 fairly large heat pipes coming off of this chip, going to the heatsink. One of those continues on to the VRM, and then there's one more additional one for the VRM as well. And just because I wanted to see it, here is the 16-core, 22-thread, 65-watt processor powering this whole thing. I did take a moment to measure the hole spacing on the cooler mounting for no particular reason. Following all those steps in reverse, it's back together and we can get this mounted on the TV stand. Which brings us back to our orange printed mount. I printed this in Prussiament PETG, forgetting that my camera reproduces orange in a kind of funky way, so it might be a glaring beacon of light throughout this video. The clamps mount into heat press inserts that hold it tightly to the TV stand tubes and hopefully reinforce this a little bit too. I've also integrated a mounting point for the brick that powers the GT1 on the back side of the mount so it can be cable managed nicely. The computer's VESA mount goes into 4 heat press inserts from the front side of the mounting bracket, and then there are a couple of keystones with shoulder screws that slide into place to hold the GT1 securely to its new mount. This gives us a mounted, cleaner setup for the GT1 Mega, and with a little bit of cable management, we have an up and running computer. A bit of an unintended consequence side effect here of mounting the GT1 where I have underneath that shelf is that the sound level from my seated position at the workbench is quieter. Now, don't get me wrong, this computer is not loud, but the fan is definitely audible in the studio, and my microphones are pretty susceptible to picking up noise like that. I currently have Cinebench running on a loop. It's at about 86 degrees Celsius right now, and with my decibel meter about 24 inches away from the computer, we're hitting 44 dB. Now with my decibel meter at arm's length above that shelf, which is only about 1.5 feet above the shelf, it's about 24 inches away from the computer once again, we're right at 39.5 to 40 decibels. So a 4 decibel decrease just by being above the shelf. Totally unintended, but I'll take it. By the way, you can set multiple different performance profiles in the BIOS of the GT1. There's a quiet, a balanced, and a performance mode. I'm in performance mode, which ramps up the fan more, but allows for maximum boost clocks and speed out of this thing. I wanted to maximize performance. I'm accepting the increase in noise level. So you can quiet it down for lighter workloads. And our Cinebench score, after running numerous runs over and over again, so it's plenty heat soaked right now, is 17,714 in Cinebench R23. I think that's honestly the best I've seen so far. I couldn't get R24 to load on this computer for a completely unknown reason, but R23, that's a pretty respectable number for a laptop processor. There's only 2 more things we need to worry about on the TV stand itself before we move to the streaming desk setup. It's these USB cables at the top of the TV. Right now they're kind of just dangling over the top of it. One of them is the receiver for my mouse and keyboard, and the other one's a USB-C connection where the receiver for my microphone connects to the computer for streaming. Both of these need to be accessible so they have good reception, but I can't have them dangling in front of the TV anymore. I designed up these printable antenna mounts, I'm calling them. These are again being printed in the Prussiament orange PETG on my Prusa XL. They're a 2-piece design, the bottom half of which gets captured by the VESA mount of the TV itself, using one of the screw holes on it to mount it. A couple of heat press inserts go into that so that it can accept hardware for the other half of the mount. The reason I made it in 2 pieces is so 1, print orientation wise, it just made sense to do it that way. And 2, if I do end up putting a bigger screen on here, a bigger TV, I can always change out this top section for a taller one that gets up and over that screen. The second half screws onto the first half, and then there's a bunch of zip tie points on it so that the cable can be just tied to it. And that's all that I really need to have this USB extension cable reach up over the screen securely. With that, I'm happy with the ability to move this stand around, to work with it where I want in the studio space and not be locked down to it just being mounted to my workbench or to a wall, something like that. Now the rest of my setup centers around this workbench here, which is a bit of a disaster. It's kind of like my ADD brain splattered out on a workbench, and I want to add a little bit more to it. As I've been live streaming more and more in recent months, I've been wanting a stream deck. This is a piece of hardware that allowed me to switch around scenes in my live stream setup quicker and cleaner versus having to find my mouse on my cluttered workbench, click on the scene, oops, that was the wrong one. I just want to streamline my process and have better streams for my audience. But I already have way too much stuff on the bench. I need to get stuff off of it, underneath of it, and somewhere where I can access it better. That goes for my A10 Mini Pro as well, my HDMI switcher that I use for my multi-camera setup in my streams. But I already had a wiring clutter mess, and that's where these HDMI and USB pass-throughs come in. The goal here is to leave these attached at all times underneath the bench, easily accessible so I can connect an HDMI cable for a camera, USB to go to the computer, and just easily plug things in or unplug them when I want to move stuff around and not have wire clutter. But then I also have my HDMI switcher, the Stream Deck, always connected. I'm not fishing around for the connections on them. They're just set up and ready to go at all times. That said, I know for a fact this A10 Mini Pro is finicky about what USB cables I connect it with. So these pass-throughs, I need to bench test them, make sure it's going to work before I bother making mounts for all of this stuff, and see if what I want to do is going to work. My ideal configuration is going to see me using this USB 3.2 powered hub that I can then connect the other stuff to, so I have more ports at the desk and only one wire going back to the computer. I'm going to plug a known good USB A to C cable into one of the 4 USB 10 gigabit per second ports on the front of the GT1. At the other end of that, I have a USB-C pass-through bulkhead, so I'll connect that, and then I'll connect the hub to the other side of that. I've got the provided USB-C to A cable from Elgato connected to the Stream Deck, and now let's plug this into the hub. Oh, it connected. This is such a win. I really didn't expect this hub to work. So now I get to design a mount for this USB-C pass-through and a couple of HDMI connections, and I can send back a couple of other cables. As I dive back into my CAD software of choice, Autodesk Fusion, to finish up the last components for this project, I'm reminded of the performance of a GT1 Mega. So I want to take a moment to talk about that. I've been living with this computer for longer than I expected to by this point. And the best compliment that I can provide to it is, I don't think about it. What I mean is that in my day-to-day work, while I'm firing this thing up and doing my job, it doesn't hold me back. It doesn't make me get frustrated and annoyed. It just does the work that I throw at it. When I introed this video and I said I was going to edit this right here on the GT1, I didn't actually know if that was going to work or if that was a challenge to myself or aspirational. I had no idea. What I can say on the other side of it is, the last handful of videos that I have put out, I started the edit on this mini PC by choice. So much so that I'm intending to change the way that I work. So I'll begin my video edits here in the studio on this computer and finish them on my other computer. I even fired up Cyberpunk 2077 on it just to see what would happen. A rather demanding game that I quite enjoy. And at 1440p, medium details without ray tracing turned on, it was hitting 40 FPS in their benchmark. Is that setting the world on fire? No. But it is a playable FPS and better than I ever expected out of such a small computer. The biggest limitation that I have so far run into is a lot of the programs I run are rather memory intensive, video editing, CAD, and as such, I'm filling up the RAM. 32 gigabytes of it is not enough for my needs. My main computer has 64 gigabytes and I max that out on a regular basis. But I can easily upgrade the GT1. I showed you inside of there. In less than 30 minutes, I could have it apart, upgrade to 64 gigabytes of RAM, and put it back together. In fact, by the time you're seeing this video, I do believe I will have already done that. I think that pretty well covers my performance feelings about the GT1. If it might fit your workflow, you can find some links in the description. Check it out for yourself. Let's get back to this project and finish this up. I'm going to dive back into the CAD software and design up the mount for these HDMI pass-throughs. It's a simple 90-degree bracket with a couple of gussets and screw holes so that I can install the pass-through cable into it and mount it to the underside of the bench. But I need to know where this is going to go from to before I go mounting it. That means I need the other end of the puzzle. In my case, it's going to be my A10 Mini Pro and my Stream Deck. I usually design all my own parts for these projects, but it takes a lot of time. So for the Stream Deck, I picked up this bracket from Mars Gizmo, a fellow creator, so that I can mount it underneath my bench. I have my heat gun mounted underneath my bench, and I mounted the Stream Deck right next to that, where it's easily accessible but not right in the way that I'm going to be bumping it on a regular basis. When it comes to my A10 Mini Pro, the HDMI switcher, I took a couple of brackets that were available and modified them to be under desk mounts. This did save me some time. Though I'm honestly not thrilled with this design as it wasn't intended to be this way, I'm going to revisit this before I end up releasing these files. That's getting mounted again right at the edge of the desk, right next to my Stream Deck. So both of them will be right at my right hand, as I am right-handed, and I can easily press the buttons and switch things around. I don't have access to most of the buttons on the A10 Mini Pro, but I only really use the ones right at the bottom for switching cameras during a stream, so that's all I need. Now that I know where this HDMI cable is plugging into, I can use the pass-through brackets. I can plug in the one end to my A10 Mini, and then I can reach as far as I can across my desk to mount these in the most optimal locations. When I do a stream, I usually have one camera off to my right and one off to my left, so I'm going to want them as far out those angles as I can for the shortest distance to my cameras. With that, I have a workbench, a computer setup, a live stream configuration that I can work with on a day-to-day basis. I've already run 8 live streams using the Geekcom GT1 Mega as the powerhouse of it, and they have been so buttery smooth. I can use AV1 encoding with that Intel chipset that's in there, and it just works really well. The Geekcom GT1 Mega is the key to this whole new setup that I've put together here, and I'm really happy with it. For 75 to close to 90% of what I do, it's meeting my needs. When I get to bigger CAD projects and bigger video edits, I will go to the big computer and it will do the job better. But again, that computer costs multiple times as much as this mini PC, draws a lot more power, and takes up a lot more space. It also makes my office pretty warm. Thank you again to Geekcom for sponsoring this video, this project. I really appreciate their support. And if you're interested in checking out the GT1 Mega for yourself, there will be a link in the description and potentially a discount code as well. And with that, I believe we're going to wrap this project up, folks. Hope you found this one interesting. If you did, maybe you'll enjoy this video about my one cable live streaming setup from the last studio space, or this one that YouTube thinks is best for you. Be sure to get subscribed to ensure your 3D prints don't fail. It's not a guarantee, but it can't hurt. See you, folks.